A young Indian girl tries her hand and her eyes at an ancient dance tradition that would die, but for the likes of her. One day, she hopes, she'll look something like this. For 2,000 years, this dance, called Bharatanatyam, told stories to the peoples of India of gods and demons, of love and hope. Where the spoken word failed, the body language of this classical dance would ring a bell. But in time, the dancers became prisoners of the priests. Their dancing was confined to temples and to religious themes, and the people lost touch with their past. But for a rebellious young woman, this exotic tradition would have died. She risked her reputation to bring it back to the people. The young woman planted this banyan tree, marking the place where she took the best of the past to make sure it had a vigorous future. Today, the place in South India where the tree thrives is considered holy. They call it Kalakshetra. Here they worship dancing. The woman who planted the tree 50 years ago not only discovered the dance was confined to the temples, she also learned that it was performed by women who were dancers by day and prostitutes by night. Rukmini Devi, then 20, was a Brahmin, an aristocrat, and when eventually she performed the dance herself in public, the Indian establishment was horrified. In time, the storm subsided and eventually the dance was accepted. Finally, India decided it was safe to send their children to her. These young dancers and musicians are devoted to one of the oldest dance traditions in the world. Under her banyan tree, Rukmini Devi leads them in prayer every day. She's now in her 81st year. She was recently asked to become President of India, the highest office in the land, but she declined. She'd be more useful, she argued, if she continued as a guardian of her country's artistic traditions. As a Brahmin girl, Rukmini Devi knew she must not marry outside her caste. She did more than that. She married a foreigner, an Irishman called Dr. Arundel, many years her senior. It was unheard of.
Absolutely unheard of. We were people, the public was abusing us like anything, and we were lost all. He was very popular. I was not known, of course, but he was very popular. He was the head of a big college, educationist, and so popular that young people just surrounded him. He identified himself with India.
Fraternization between Indians and foreigners was disapproved, but many prominent Europeans joined India's fight for self-expression. Rukmini wanted to contribute in her own way. Dr. Shankara Menon was a close supporter from the start.
She had always been interested in music, dance, and in all the creative arts. But at one period of her life, she came into very close touch with Anna Pavlova, who was very fond of her for some reason. She thought that she would be a very outstanding dancer. So she said, why don't you learn dance? So Rukmini Devi said, but it is past the time when one should start learning dancing. And Pavlova said, no, you have a very supple body and I'll teach you myself. and she gave her the first few lessons in the ballet. Her first essay in dancing was not Indian dancing, but the Russian ballet, and her first teacher was the best dancer of the time, Anna Pavlova.
Pavlova advised Rukmini to explore her own dance culture, but there was a problem.
I was living in a part of India which is famous for both music and dance dramas and temples and so on. So I was in that particular atmosphere. And so, in spite of it, I was not allowed to see the dance at all.
Why was that?
Because at that time there was a big stigma attached to them, because the dancers were professionals from a particular caste called Devadasi, and they were considered to be, many of them, prostitutes.
Temple prostitutes were far from young Rukmini's experience of life, and it wasn't until 4 years after her marriage that she saw the notorious dance herself.